Bonjour Anna Calvi. So the difficult second album, the stickers, is it a myth or reality? People always say that the second album has to be difficult.
I think making records is difficult. I don't think it's specific to how many you've done. So I don't really agree with that. The jungle of bells. They ring my fear through the night.
Was it difficult, like not to do like a replica of the first one? And was it a goal for you, I guess?
It was a goal to not repeat myself, yeah. But I think it's just natural that after putting one record out, you want to try and do something different with the next one. So it didn't feel that hard to approach it in that way.
How does the success, I mean, the reaction of the public and the press and all that for the first album, does it have an impact or not on the way you think the music, the way you approach your art?
No, I mean it was nice. It was nice that people liked the first record, but when I was making it, I had no idea that anyone would ever hear it, so it didn't enter my mind. And I think that was a good lesson for me, and that's how I approached this record, because even though I knew some people would hear it, there's no way of guaranteeing how people are going to respond to it, and at the end of the day it's my opinion that really matters because it's my work.
What surprised you the most regarding the success of the first one? Big success, not just a little success, I guess. Or maybe you were not surprised.
Well, I mean, yeah, I was surprised. I don't know, just the whole thing was a bit of a unexpected thing, but at the same time, you know, it happened over the space of a year and a half of touring and of working hard, so it wasn't like overnight, like I had one hit single and then suddenly, you know, I was selling millions of records. I don't think it was more of a cult thing, so it was easier for me to deal with it.
You took less time to prepare this, to write and record this second album than the first one. For the first one, I think you had like, what, 2 years or maybe more, I mean, the life before. How does that impact the way you think your music and the way you write and music and songs in general?
It didn't really affect my writing, because I spent a year writing the songs for this record. I spent 6 weeks recording, which was a much shorter time than the last record, but I think it was a good thing because it made me focus on my gut instinct, and it stopped me obsessing about tiny details that no one will ever hear. So I think it helped my the recording of my album, the fact that it was less time.
You think it can be a trap to have too much time? You know,
yeah,
sometimes?
I think creativity needs some kind of limitation, otherwise it just kind of spreads out and you become kind of trapped by the fact that there are no boundaries.
One breath has a wide range of like emotions, textures, sounds. Were you looking for this large rainbow of and this eclecticism in a way?
Yes, I was. I wanted there to be a really wide kind of spectrum of emotion and dynamic, and I wanted there to be a real kind of fight between moments of beauty and moments of ugliness, that they're right next to each other and they're fighting for the space. So it was something I thought about before I started recording.
It's even something that we can feel even in the instrumentation too. It seems that you use many things that the approach of the instrumentation is not the same as the first album. Were you experimenting some stuff? Were you have a lot of stuff in mind before when you prepare the album, before going in the studio and recording it?
Yeah, I wanted the guitar to come more in just the pivotal moment of the song as a kind of emotional device, as opposed to being an accompanying instrument. So I wanted to create other textures to hold down the chords. So I was looking at using organ and using tuned percussion like marimba and vibraphone to create more unusual textures.
All these sounds, you had them in mind even when you wrote the songs, or it was more like when you were in the studio during the recording process?
No, it was early on. It was actually even before I started writing the songs. I was thinking about the textures that I wanted to create on the record.
So you worked on production with John Congleton, who worked with Explosion in the Skies and a lot of people. Why this choice, and how did you work together, and what do you think did he bring to the result of this second album?
The thing I like about his work is that each album that he does sounds completely different, and that's something that really appealed to me because I didn't want someone coming and putting their stamp on my work. I like the fact that he's worked on such a wide range of music, and I think he helped encourage me to be less of a perfectionist and to recognise what the fundamental things are that moves people about a recording, and it's not the tiny things, it's almost the imperfection that can be charming about a recording, and that was helpful for me, and I think it was a natural development from making a record before, as you start being slightly more relaxed in the studio and not finding it as kind of emotionally exhausting.
You think a good producer has to be a good shrink?
Yeah, definitely. That's kind of most of their job. It's just like calm you down.
So, and is your band invited in your creative process? The musician you play with? Oh, you're a control freak.
I'm a bit of a control freak, but having said that, what they do bring is very special, and it's why I work with them, and it's also really good to have feedback from people whose opinion you trust. So, although I am the kind of the songwriter, their influence is definitely heard on the record.
One Breath is it autobiographical? A lot? A little bit? Not at all?
It's more based on my life than the first record, I'd say.
Is it easier for you to write when it's really you that you put in the songs than when it's not that much you?
Well, it's just different ways of being you, because you can express your thoughts on subjects that aren't to do with your life, and that's still you. But if you're actually talking about your life, that's another level of you. And it's something I wanted to explore, because I think the point of being a songwriter is to try and find truth in what you're doing, and this is a natural way to further that exploration, is to kind of delve into what is actually happening in your life and how can you make something interesting out of that.
What angle you looked for your voice on this album? Because I think that you start singing not very early, so the first album was a bit of a beginning for the relationship with you and your voice. So now for this second chapter, how different was it?
I was trying to look to how I could have as much dynamic in my voice as possible, and how you can get real intensity out of singing softly as well as singing really loud. So I wanted in one song to have a wide range of dynamic in the voice, and to see the voice almost like an instrument, that it could be taking the role of singing a riff you know, that it's not, there's so much that the voice can do without words. So that was something that I was trying to explore with this record.
Does that mean that you also feel your guitar as like an extension of your voice?
Yeah, I think they work together, and I think for this record they're both fighting to express kind of a wildness, especially the guitar. It's kind of has a kind of wild, unleashed energy to it that can't help but get expressed at certain moments.
Is it easy to feel like being on the edge of something like sadness and singing it? I mean, you're somebody who is apparently a little bit shy, and you put a lot of, I mean, you put everything on this in these songs, and these songs are public. So how easy is it to go from this very personal and very internal way of thinking to go to worldwide audience?
I think there's a strength to admitting vulnerability, and I think that's kind of what I personally feel attracted to in artists. And so it doesn't feel scary. It feels brave, but not scary. And I think that's the good thing about doing something creative, is it gives you a platform, an opportunity to delve as far as you can into every corners of your psyche. So that, and I'm not afraid to show the, you know, the maybe the less appealing sides, because I think that's what makes it interesting.
Like we said, there's a lot of musical different textures on this album, atmospheres and all that. I think about on Carry Me Over, there's this very cinematographic use of the strings in the second part of the composition. Are some film music composers are or were big influences for you?
Yeah, I mean, I listened to a lot of Ennio Morricone and Bernard Herrmann were the main ones. Because I know I want the music to tell a story. I want it to create an atmosphere and create a scene, a picture that you could get lost in and get almost hypnotized by.
And on the there's also this song where you it's on Love of My Life, where the guitar is very raw, a lot of distortion, but you use it on the contrary on somebody very wild. It's not just okay, I'm going to put a little bit of distortion just to. It's is it something that you wanted to get this very two different approach of the sound textures?
Yeah, I mean, that song is, you know, it's expressing a very wild, visceral emotion, and so it couldn't really be expressed in any other way than something that feels completely unhinged and unleashed.
By the way, in all your musical influences, who were the wildest one on the guitar-oriented sounds? Is there some bands or musicians or artists that you're really fond of and are very wild? You can think about in terms of sounds or in terms of...
Well, kind of an obvious one I'd say was Warren Ellis. I think the way that he unleashes his guitar onto the ears is pretty wild. Yeah.
What were you listening to during the time between the first album and the second one, when you were not playing music, when you, or maybe your ears were on rest? Or?
I don't remember what I was listening to in between, but I know that when I was writing this record, because I tend to, for influence, I would listen to things that are quite on the edge of avant-garde, and because I think that's where I find the most interesting textures. So I listened to music like Ligeti and John Adams and Steve Reich and just kind of a lot of choral music I listened to. And I like the idea of using these influences and then trying to put them into more of a kind of understandable pop song. Not that my music's pop, but you know, in the kind of genre of pop.
You had a classical music training when you were younger. Do you think at the time you could have, your career could have been in this only classical music direction? I
think I would have been interested into developing more kind of a side of just writing instrumental music, and it's something that I would like to explore in the future.
Now that this second album is almost released, what did you learn from this second chapter? Maybe it's too early.
Well, I think that I realised that an album it's not like, it doesn't have to be your ultimate last statement to the world. It's like it's a snapshot of a moment in time, and each one, that's all it is. It doesn't have to define you as everything. So I think that's been quite a liberating feeling, and I think it's probably quite natural, because when your first album comes out, it's the first thing anyone hears of you, and you feel that you have to say everything, and then you realise that they're just colours. It's just a long kind of journey of, you know, different sides of you which you wish to bring out at different times. So that's quite a nice thing I've learnt through this experience of making a second record.
Okay, thank you, Calvi.
Nice.